with me, the only way you truly respect a person who dies when they pass is you try to honor the philosophies and principles that that person lived by. There are many things that made up Charlie Kirk, but there were three principles that always I paid attention to. One, he wanted to have open dialogue to some limited degree. Two was the empathy position, which I heavily disagreed with, that he did not believe in empathy. And the third is gun violence. Because he made a statement, and many statements like this, that gun violence was simply a natural part of life. And other things. And I am doing this not because I'm trying to injure in any way Charlie Kirk or his supporters. It is to have the debate, because we're finally actually having an honest debate. Because yes, the instant that Charlie Kirk died, immediately people who were supportive of Charlie Kirk were ready to utilize Charlie Kirk's death for purposes of completing objectives that you have in our society, perhaps regarding guns and other issues, based on your empathetic response to Kirk's assassination. What you did is a very human thing, and what you're doing is a very human thing. And actually, it's what we should be doing. When tragedy happens, we should express how we feel. Try to come up with solutions. Try to come up with objectives to deal with the crisis. So let's begin with what it is that Charlie Kirk's judgment was about gun violence. And let's talk about guns and a solution to exactly what you guys have done by taking advantage of the moment of Charlie Kirk's death, literally probably within minutes or hours of his death. So let's have the discussion. Thank you.
So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen.
Right.
You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home,
Yes.
by having more armed guards in front of schools. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. Wow. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe.
So those are two key components of Charlie Kirk's philosophy that he taught. Number one, empathy is bad. It is New Age. It is not really what historically it is, which it is actually part of the human makeup that has existed since our brains essentially evolved. That is a fundamental component of who we are and has actually caused a lot of human development by having empathy. The second part that he does is gun violence, saying that gun violence is just a natural part of being free. These two components is where people, when they say do not have empathy, usually what the person is trying to get you to do. When a person tells you that empathy is bad, it's because they want you to do bad things. There are times in which you need to put your empathy and shred it. For example, war. Soldiers in war, and this is actually what happens in basic training. It isn't that it wipes out all the empathy that the soldier has. What they do is they focus They eliminate the soldier's empathy for everything outside of patriotism, number one, and number two, being a member of a military unit. And the reason why that is because the soldier one day may go into combat. And when that soldier enters combat, the soldier is going to be told, you're going to kill thousands and thousands of people over the next year. And you're going to do that and like it. You're going to do it because you have to do it. And you need to put your empathy aside. And you need to have empathy for your fellow brothers and soldiers. And the reason why you need that is because you need to be willing to sacrifice for them. You need to be willing as a soldier to be able to terminate your life just in the hopes that, not to terminate not just your life, but everyone in your unit, if necessary, in the cause of victory. You have to have that level of connection to the people who you serve with as a member of the armed forces. So your empathy is conditioned to focus only on you, your country, your fellow soldiers, and everyone outside of that practically doesn't exist as far as your empathy goes, because you may have to kill them. Because if you have empathy, empathy will stop you from killing people. You see, if I have empathy for you, or you have empathy for me, and you recognize my value, and I recognize your value, then you are less likely. You might throw punches with me. We might get into a fight. We may get into a really damn good fight. But empathy is what stops you from, when you have that person down on the ground and you're about ready to throw that one damn blow that's going to push that person's the bones in their nose up into that person's brain. That's what stops you. That's what stops some professional boxers or, combat sports people, that gets them to stop pounding on a person when they realize that that person is just done. The person that I'm fighting is done. I'm not going to beat this man to death. This man is too proud to go down, and his pride is what's holding him up and is going to compel me to kill him. But I'm a professional boxer, and as a professional boxer, I'm not here to beat this man to death. I am here to be a professional athlete and have respect and admiration for my opponent, because my opponent is a skilled boxer and we are just trying to prove who's the better boxer. So you have admiration for each other. You acknowledge the person's existence, and therefore you don't go all the way to kill them, or you stay inside of the fight within the rules of the fighting sport that you are in, or the sport that you are in where potentially people could die. What stops you from killing and what stops you from going outside of those rules is empathy. What empathy also does, empathy has at one of its higher point is guilt. When you feel guilt historically has been an instrument of great change. You see, guilt tells you sometimes that something is wrong. If you're religious, like sometimes I'm debating Christians or whatever, or religious people, I always remind them that sometimes guilt is actually the voice of God telling you something is wrong. If you're not religious, guilt is your consciousness. It is your morality speaking to you. It's your subconscious mind speaking to you, telling you this is wrong. For example, in American history, abolitionists were led by guilt. They felt guilty about that they were owning people and that terrible things were happening. And at the time when slavery existed, slavery had biblical reasons that people justified. That's why you hear the term the natural order of things. It's a biblical interpretation that says that you can own people because God said so with the mark of Cain. And that is what the pro-slavery people did. But abolitionists had that little angel on their shoulder saying, that's not true. That's not right. These people that we're owning, we shouldn't be owning. They have things to offer, they have value, things like that, and then the angel keeps on speaking, and then that's how you change things. Where Charlie Kirk and people like him, when he says, do not feel, do not have empathy, is because of what you are experiencing now. If you're a supporter of Charlie Kirk, you probably are angry and you're frustrated and it hurt. Why? Because you watched a video in which a person that you admire, a person that you believe is a wise person and all this stuff, had his throat blown out as you were watching him. You watched him die by gun violence. And you had that natural response. Something has to be done. Bad thing. That's empathy yelling at you. That's like the angels of guilt saying, do something. It's wrong. This is bad. This is wrong. We need to do something. We need to do something now. That's empathy screaming at you. That's the angels of guilt screaming at you, saying you gotta do something. That's wrong. That should not have happened. And you felt, who did it? I want to know the reasons. I want to know all this stuff. I'm angry. And you know what that is? That's also empathy. Empathy helps design what is the stages of grief. Right? You're going to go through that. You're going through that right now. The 5 stages of grief. You're going through them. It's going 1, 5, 4, 2, 1. You're jumping all over the place on it because you're not a machine. You have value. And since you're not a machine and you have value, you're going to go through the stages of grief in all kinds of different ways. But this is where it comes down to the issue of gun violence. What you're feeling is what every single person who has ever had to experience gun violence experiences. All of them want to do something, particularly when it comes to their children, like school shootings. And right now in our country, the number one thing that kills children are what you just saw. A gun going off. Now, sometimes it's because of gun-related crime. Sometimes it's because of suicide. Sometimes it's just an accident. But all of that is gun-related issues. He is telling you not to have empathy, even though now you're experiencing empathy. You're experiencing its virtue by demanding action, by demanding a response and justice and all of that stuff. All of that going through your mind and your heart and your essence. That's where he's wrong. Because you need empathy. And we have to be a society that demands more. Because we can be. Because that's what you're demanding. You're demanding our society to be more than what it is, to not just stop doing nothing. You're like all the parents of all the Sandy Hook shooters and all that stuff. That's what you're feeling. That's what you are right now. That's what you're going to be for a while. The difference is that people who are on the area when it comes to gun control is they did not listen to Charlie Kirk and others to not have empathy. They have human empathy, and they believe that human empathy is actually a valuable thing, because it's a valuable thing that you are feeling when you are reaching out to your friends and family and your people on your, quote, side to share your grief. That's why you're out there doing stuff, right? That's all human empathy. And in many ways, empathy is the voice of God telling you to love your neighbor, telling you that his death was wrong and immoral, and you should do something about it. It's your responsibility as a human being to make this world better. And that is the other area where Charlie Kirk is also wrong. See, he's wrong in that we don't have to live like this. We don't. We do not have to live in a world in which gun violence is so constant, where you're going to watch people be murdered. No, where children watch their classmates be murdered, which I guarantee you how you're feeling is nothing in comparison to what a child is feeling, because that's the first time that they've seen a person die. And maybe that's a person that they considered a friend. Maybe it was someone that they were a bully to. Could you imagine what it would be to be a child who was a bully to a person whose one day the blood from their body splattered from them in their last moment onto your body? The guilt that you might feel. Because you were maybe a bully, but you know, you got your laughs, but now this happens. And that's where guilt can really pound. I mean, these kids go back to their parents and they ask their parents, what do I do? I feel bad. This person was murdered in front of me in my own classroom. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to handle this? How am I supposed to process this? You know, Mom, Dad, tell me, what am I supposed to do? You have to have empathy for your child and come up with a solution to help your child process what your child is experiencing. So, are we going to live in that society where levels of violence is done? Because if gun violence is just a natural part of life, then nothing should be done about Charlie Kirk's death. Nothing, because it's just part of life. His murder is no different than the sun rising and setting. It's just the natural process of things. Natural process of things is people get killed. So who cares if he dies? He was murdered? Oh, he got murdered, but that's just a natural part of life. That's a natural part of what it means to be an American. It's part of being an American that Charlie Kirk is murdered. Now, if you disagree with that, or maybe you're upset with me, if you're upset with me, it's because you have empathy for Kurt, and you know what I'm saying is kind of insulting, and you're defending him. And that's why you're upset with me saying this. Saying that if Kurt believed that gun violence is a natural part of life, then do nothing. Nothing at all. Because it's just part of life. Now the other side is this. You do something. We make we make certain that we try to make certain maybe that guns are in the hands of responsible people. That people who own guns, people who choose to have guns, that they we make certain as much as we can that those people are honorable and that they are going to be ethical and responsible for the guns that they possess. Or if they teach people to use guns, that they teach people not just how to shoot the gun, but the moral and ethical responsibility to have a gun in your hand, that you hold the power of life and death of everyone around you. And that responsibility is what you're taking on. And you must be responsible. Things like that. So that becomes the question, really. Was Kurt right about empathy being bad? Was he right that gun violence is just a natural part of life? And if not, and if you believe that, why should anyone feel for him because he says that empathy is bad? If gun violence is just a natural part of life, as natural as breathing, then who cares if he dies? So let's have that discussion. Can we actually do something? Because if you're angry and you're upset and frustrated by me saying this, trust me, there are 35,000 families every single year or more who are in exactly your position. Maybe we should do something. Maybe we should debate in an honorable and ethical fashion to finding a way to reduce the amount of gun deaths with the ultimate goal of getting it to zero. How do we do that? It's a good question. But if we can honorably and ethically disagree with each other, which is how this country is supposed to work, honorably and ethically disagree to come to a combined solution that results in little or no gun death. That's simple. Because, as I keep saying, Charlie Kirk was wrong. And his death is an expression that he was wrong. And the honest truth is, you are never going to hear me have any empathy for him or feel bad that he was murdered by a gun, because his life said, don't do that. Don't feel bad for me. I'm nothing. My gun death is just part of life. Now, or not, and you do something, and you say that, you know what, Kurt, you were wrong. Empathy is important. Empathy is as fundamental to life as breathing and makes our society better. And gun deaths are tragic no matter who gets shot. And as a society, we should try to reduce it. And I'm sorry, Kurt, but you tried to have an argument, but your death said that you were wrong on those two issues. And as soon as we were able to say that you were wrong on those two issues, then we can all grieve together. And we can all honor him together in a way that is empathetic and that believes that the next person who gets shot can actually be grieved. That can actually be that something can be done as a symbol to their life that solves the problem. So let's get together and let's get to work. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.